Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome into Rounding the Bases Live. My name is Joel Goldberg, and Rounding the Bases Live, as always, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Hashtag no stopping you. I am really excited about the episode coming up today, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I do want to go back and remind everyone, if you haven't seen yesterday's episode, these episodes usually go around 30 minutes, give or take. Yesterday went about an hour and 10 minutes. That's not a normal length, but I had on Kiana Sinks, who is a rising star and activist here in this town, 25 years old. And I had her on yesterday. I know today, really busy day for her, a lot of getting out the vote, voter registration, Juneteenth. And so I would encourage everyone that wants to just learn a little bit more about what's going on to check out that. It's on all my social media spots. Listen to and watch 10 minutes of it, 20 minutes of it, 30 minutes of it, an hour of it, whatever it is. But I encourage everyone to do that and would love it if you would, as always, share it with your network. So I was talking to some of my friends at Enterprise Bank and Trust yesterday, and I'm really excited about the partnership as we continue with them. I will say that, as I do every day, Casey Cattle Company, amazing. And that's even more so on the mind because the doorbell rang this morning and that delivery was there. Bacon, cheeseburger, bratwursts, ground beef. It's all Wagyu. Veteran owned and operated up in Weston, Missouri. So check them out. I say it all the time. If you go to their website or their social media and they're out of something, just keep checking back. Tuesday seems to be a magical day where they restock. So they go through it quickly. They ship to all 50 states. So I hope that you will look at them. It's amazing. I can vouch for it. My family can do that as well. And JJ's Wine and Spirits, southwest corner of College and Antioch. Wine Wednesdays, 15% off all bottles of wine. Great service, local, owned and operated. And so they are in Johnson County, Overland Park, if you are in that area. I've told people and talked about this a lot that about 3.5 years ago, I started a speaking business. Podcast came with it. This podcast was added on during the pandemic. And one of my favorite things over these last 3 years has just been the people that I've met through networking. I mean, so much of what I do every day, even now via Zoom, is networking. And I think two of the early guys that I met, I think actually from the same source, and they'll have to let me know that right now, were Mark Kelly and Blake Brock. I feel like, and both join me. They've got their own things going on. They've got things going on together. I don't understand half of it. I just know they're really good at what they do. And they're both friends of mine as well. I feel like, were we both introduced, or were we all introduced, at least me to each of you, through Proof and through Grant Gooding and Courtney Chapman, or no?
I believe that it's the Grant and Scott Havens connection, like everything else in KC.
Certainly down in this neck of the woods, because I remember meeting Mark at Topgolf at a happy hour, and then with that came a lot of regular coffees and and just hanging out and talking shop and all of that. And Blake, you and I go back to about the same time, and you guys have both. We talk so much about pivots during this pandemic, but both of you have pivoted over the last couple of years and had different roles and different endeavors since I first met you. So let's start with that, and individually and collectively. But Mark, let's begin with this venture and what you're doing with Blake right now.
Yeah, sure. So when we started this out, about 5 years ago, we were independently trying to do our own things, right? Blake was focused on his stuff. I was focused on trying to save the world through marketing. And over the course of time, we started to realize, at least I started to realize, where my sweet spot was. My sweet spot wasn't really doing the advertising part of marketing. It was doing kind of this analytics, this operations side of marketing, and actually even into the sales and growth side of things, right? How do we create revenue as a business? And probably over the last 3 years, probably about the same time that Joel, you and I met, Blake and I really started getting to know each other. And we realized that we complement each other very well. And the things that we do can really add value to a lot of companies. And without getting too deep into it, this whole pandemic and everything that's going on here has caused a lot of companies to rethink their expense structures. And it's created new business opportunities that really fit nicely into what we do.
Yeah, and I know you guys are so good in that world, and a lot involving technology. you guys both in your LinkedIn titles, along with many other things, have the word growth in them, which can mean a lot of things, right? I mean, we could be talking about anything, but how do you two, Blake, fit together in terms of? I mean, obviously it's a great match, a great collaboration. What are the similarities? What are the differences that make it work?
Sure. So while Mark and I both come from sales and marketing backgrounds, mine is almost exclusively in the technology space. From DST and Boston Financial, where you're dealing with huge international clients, to then going to a couple of smaller firms that were building out a presence and had different focus areas. It was still always based off of tech and product. And so I really, really get that world. But I also learned how to use that thinking and methodology to understand other businesses to help them grow. And where Mark comes in is he's got the understanding of leading those large organizations and putting these strategies together. And so the two of us, we've got everything from strategy to execution, where we can take a growth plan and really empower it and make those visions that companies have come true by really, it's kind of like Captain Planet. It's when these powers combine. It's a yin and a yang.
Yeah, it's a good yin and a yang too. And you guys have both been at it a long time, and maybe if my math is correct, Mark a little bit longer than Blake. So I'll go with that's my way of saying Mark's older than Blake.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I'm also older than you, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, but I look older than you, so you certainly could pass me off when I throw on my glasses too. By the way, it was a nice picture of the two of you that I put on social media today. We got to have a little bit.
It's like Abbott and Costello.
But
we decided to have a little fun with mine, even though it's a little quirky.
No, there's nothing wrong with quirky. There was like what red glasses, I believe. What was going on there? I don't know if I should. Let's see if I could share that real quick. If I could find that at all, because people, what we're talking about. No, I'm not going to find it. I didn't have it ready, so that's okay. All right, just check out my social media and you'll see it, or I'll get it when somebody else is talking. But my point here was, if you are the old one in the group, Mark, you've been at this a long time, and I think that your guys' industry is so fascinating. There's change in every industry, but it just seems to me like the change in what you guys do, not just during a pandemic, is, if not daily, it's certainly very regular. What was the world like when you got into it, and what is it like now?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So when I started, are you asking when I started my business or when I started in my career?
No, just in your career and business too, because I think there's probably change involving both.
Yeah, absolutely. So, technology has been probably the biggest impact to the marketing and sales world, right? It is everything that used to be done via a phone book or via, the phone.
Abacus.
Abacus, knocking on doors, right? I mean, it's now being done automated, in an automated fashion. And so when we kind of, and that's just true for just about every industry. But when we started doing this about 5 years ago, the idea of marketing technology, automating your processes, thinking about your processes from a marketing and sales standpoint was pretty foreign. People really understand the outputs of marketing and sales. It's tough to understand what makes that up, right? And it's a little bit like building a house. When you build a house, you don't start with the paintbrush and paint in your hand. You start with a plan. You start with the blueprint. That's the way you should treat marketing and sales too. And so I think over the last 5 years, that's really started to develop, and people have really adopted that and starting to see the value in that.
There it is, by the way. Just wanted to make sure.
Blake's Kmart photo.
Yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
That's good though. I like the glasses. I think I texted or emailed you guys that this morning, and I said, what's the caption on that one? Hey, look at this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys came up with something better than that, but
no, that's great. And for the record, I don't wear glasses. They're totally a prop.
Mine aren't.
That's because you're younger, and
Right.
I just happen to have contacts in. But Blake, I mean, since I've known you, you've moved on and shifted gears and done some different things. How's the industry changed, even just since you and I met a few years ago?
Yeah, so especially in Kansas City, where frankly we kind of trail the coasts when it comes to technology, marketing, and marketing technology. really when I started in the business and even rewind to 5 years ago, it was very much here's what we want, go do this. And you kind of took the orders and you did it because you were trying to grow your business. Well, over the last 5 years, there's been this massive shift to really challenging customers, challenging clients and treating them like partners to say, is that really going to provide the lift you're looking for in the direction you want to go that feeds your ultimate company or product vision? And so that's really where Mark and I have been focusing is even today, we have great clients that come to us and say, we want to build this, or we need to do this marketing tactic. We need a new website that's going to save the world. Well, when it comes down to it, if those tactics don't align with your growth strategy, then they're really not going to move the needle for you. So where we have really focused and where we think we're leading really the market is looking at things through the lens of let's create a growth hypothesis first. Let's understand where you want to go. And then we're going to help build the foundation and the blueprint to get there. And along the way, we may find, hey, you know what? You were right. You need a new website. And here's the data to prove it. Hey, you know what? Your products are stale. Your services are stale. That's what your customers are saying. Here's the data to prove it. Let's go ahead and improve that. But those things, you can't do them right off the bat unless you have the data and the proof ahead of time. And so we really work with that engine. And there are some great partners in town that we work with, Proof Positioning being one of those. Everyone is familiar with them. Bringing them into a project with us really fuels and accelerates the ability to gather that data. But where Mark and I are focused is growth hypothesis, foundation, blueprint, and then accelerating that as quickly as possible in the right direction. And
I think, just to jump on top of that, one of the things too that's unique to what we do is, we're not trying to, drain a person's or a company's, funds for supporting something like this. Our job is to get in, add value, create that outcome that they're looking for, and then back away and let that run. And if needed, we can stay on. But our idea is to teach and let them grow.
So much of what you guys are talking about, and this, I think it's true in almost every profession, involves communication. It involves trust. And this has really been one of my favorite questions during this pandemic to ask. I mean, how did I meet both of you? I met both of you at networking events. And so we've lost in many ways the ability to do that. Starting to come back, we could all sit there and talk about what we're comfortable with and what we're not. But I've seen a lot of people and companies thrive in this environment by pivoting. I've seen others just kind of waiting and really getting frustrated by a lack of ability to do things the way they were. You two, as we've talked about, are in change industries already, but so you're used to that. But I mean, Mark, we're living in this Zoom world or here in, my platform here right now. And that, at least to me, like in my world, from a speaking standpoint, and this will be true when baseball comes back, which I think it is, although it changes by the minute, but that'll be different for us too. Like I don't suspect that we'll be traveling to broadcast baseball games. We'll be home broadcasting games from the road. Yeah. Is that better or worse? I don't think that's a debate that is necessary to have. It's pointless. It's just different. Mm-hmm. So how have you handled that, Mark, and then Blake, because both of you guys are so big on relationships and you haven't had that same ability as you did before. How have you been able to pivot and keep business going?
No, that's a great question. So, as you and I know, we met physically and had coffee quite often. And that is a great dynamic that I incredibly enjoy doing. But what I will tell you is, I was just thinking as you were asking that question, since the pandemic started, we've probably picked up 6 clients maybe that we did not have even on the radar before this all started. And only 2 of them I've met face to face, right, in person. The others have all been on Zoom. And so I think the market has changed. Like, the environment has changed, right? And there's a higher receptibility to what this means and how business is going to work. And so, but I think you can still leverage the idea of networking, the idea of communication in this face-to-face environment, because that's really what's real. And you can see facial expressions, you can see body actions, you can see how people are responding to different comments and then adapt and change. And so I think it's obviously not the same, but I do see incredible value in it. I think it's been working great for us.
Blake?
I agree. And I'll piggyback on that. I remember the conversation that Mark and I had. We were sprinting into quarantine. Business was good. But when everything kind of hit, we sat back and we had a phone conversation. We said, what should we do? How do we build trust in the community, especially folks that maybe don't know who we are? How do we add value? How do we show that we're here to add value, even if you don't want to work with us right now?
Mm-hmm.
And we decided that day, we're going to start doing free consults. We're going to give anyone and everyone who wants it, no matter, they could be a part-time side hustle entrepreneur, or they could be a $500 million financial institution. We were going to do free consults, 1 hour, and really put everything we do into one quick class, exercise, framework. And by doing that, we had conversations every day. It was amazing. And people not only, they weren't doing it because it was free. People were looking at how to grow their own business, and they looked at that as, okay, I can have a conversation. These guys are going to help me. They know that I might not be a customer, but they're going to provide that help. We had those conversations, and that directly didn't result in growth for us, but indirectly it showed, here is what we do. We're not charging you for it. We're giving you value. And I think after 3 or 4 weeks of doing that, that's when we really started to onboard these new clients who were like, okay, we can see the potential here. You are trustworthy. You're adding value. And then exactly what Mark said, you might be working in this video world like we are right now, which has done two things. It's increased the requirement to have total transparency, to have total honesty, because you're building a relationship based on faith. You haven't had coffee together. You haven't had 6 months of developing that bond. Instead, everyone has to take you for your word and your visual expressions. And we've found that total transparency, honesty, it actually helps accelerate building that relationship on top of delivering great results.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating study, and I think that what you guys are talking about, not every industry, is across the board. I mean, think about how many restaurants you've seen that have been able to stay in business, that have said, hey, we're offering this today, and by the way, we're going to also throw this in, or whatever it is. It's like, because what I keep thinking about, an executive recently said to me, it's been a while now, maybe 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, he said, people will remember the way you treated them. He said there's mental equity right now being built during this time. It's a little counterintuitive to offer stuff for free, but at least I felt like my challenge early on, and I think that this is exactly what you two went through, was how do you ask someone for business, to pay for business, when they're just trying to stay afloat? How do you ask someone for help when you're struggling, when they're struggling as much, if not more?
Mm-hmm.
But when you start to offer to help them, like, what do you have to lose? Maybe your time. You certainly don't want to get the reputation of, hey, there's the place to get a bunch of free things, and
right.
Hey, they'll do it for anything. But I do think we could put an asterisk next to any of our services right now and say, that was during the pandemic. That's what I charged or offered back then. But I don't think that's the way it goes.
No.
The way it's going, it's, hey, wait a minute. Those guys at New Edge Growth, hey, like for me, I reached out to a lot of my past speaking clients and I said, hey, do you want me to jump into one of your team meetings for 10 or 15 minutes? Can I help with a little pick-me-up? Can I help with anything? I know spirits can be down or people are needing some connectivity. What can I do to help out? And a couple of those immediately led to, hey, we want to hire you to speak to our whole team or whatever it is. So, it just, there's a message, I think, ultimately, Mark, in just reaching out and helping people. And this ends up ultimately being a great marketing opportunity.
It does. Well, and to your point, even in your presentation, right, you talk about filling the well before you can take water out of it, right? So you can't take it unless you fill it. And so that's what you're doing right now, right? And it is it is about establishing that trust, establishing that confidence, and really just knowing that you're there for them, right? And that they're going to have, and by the way, circle it all full circle, you also get something out of it as well. I mean, you're fulfilling some innate, part of you that's saying, hey, I'm helping this person out. I feel better about it. And, that relationship's being built, that bond's being built. And that's something that's going to last beyond this whole pandemic.
Yeah, it's almost like a little bit of that same feeling you get when you go for coffee with someone. It's just it's a different connectivity, but it's connectivity, and that's what so many people, I think, were missing. And Blake, you know this. I mean, we're involved in a mastermind group together, and it's, to me, been so inspiring and everybody's in different type of fields, right? I mean, from a lot of people that have been guests on the show too, from someone like Allison Edwards, who's a doctor, direct primary care. She's been on the show twice. It's a great resource for me too. To Luke Wade, who episode 1, he was the first guy I thought of. Like, here's a guy that has this thriving business, which is 100% involving people being in one place together, playing sports and games, and suddenly none of that was available, to what's turned into online bingo and online games and events around the country. Like one of the most amazing pivots. And I think that there are so many of those stories, but I think, and you can steer me in a different direction or go with it where you want, but what we've seen in that group, and we could rattle off a lot of names, and feel free to do. I mean, Andrew Dallas is leading the charge, and he's been a guest on this show. And by the way, what Pro Athlete does, they inspire every single day with everything they do. That mastermind group, to me, has sort of been a microcosm of the spirit that we have seen in Kansas City. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's been a lot of positive in what could be and is considered such a bad time.
Completely agree. And Andrew's a great guy. He started this group a few years ago with the intention of business leaders helping business leaders through the challenges that we all face, but don't typically get to talk about. And that really got put on steroids when COVID-19 hit. And you were on the meeting, I think it was in April, our first virtual meeting. We didn't really know what to expect, but we brought in Allison. We had, a few other folks talk about, the HR perspectives, PPP, how you should look at things from a financial perspective, what's going on and how to fix it. And 2 hours went by like that. And I was so impressed by every single person that contributed or asked a question, and the work that people were doing and the pivots that happened automatically. And afterwards, Andrew and I talked, and they're like, you know what? For him, I think that was very fulfilling, because he set out to create something, and maybe in a time that it should go the opposite way, it actually all came together. And we actually talked to the Business Journal, and they published a story, and it was right on theme, and it was just perfect, because all we did was talk about the group and what had been happening. And the story that came out was people doing good. And that's really the message that Andrew set out to share, whether it's helping each other or helping the community. What a great group of people. I've been extremely impressed so far.
Yeah, and I just mentioned a couple of the guests on that show, but what was really cool too was suddenly there were resources for others, right? I mean, one of the early guests on the show was Brian Huston, and we had him on just to talk about PPP and unemployment. I know for me personally, I had all these questions about, what do I do right now? And I know that was just about me, but my situation, being out of baseball and all that. And so there were resources for people, which was really inspirational. So, Mark, that word pivot, I had someone last night, I was at a thing last night, and somebody goes, is pivot just the most overused word right now? And I'm like, yeah, probably compared to before, either pivot or unprecedented times. Will be one that I talk about in my speeches, where I'm like, have we ever had an expression that was so underutilized that now is part of every single sentence? I also, in my speech, happen to talk about pivots. But my response when they said, is that the most overused word? I said, maybe, but it's accurate. I mean, it has to be the word of the times in terms of the pandemic. And I bring that up because I'm wondering for both of you, where your world is going beyond this pandemic. I mean, the one thing I've been very clear to people about is that nothing will ever be the same. Doesn't mean we've lost everything. It means that we have the ability now. I hope that we still, and we will, have the ability to go for a coffee or go for a drink or whatever it is. We'll still do that, but we don't have to do that either, and still have we can still have the ability to be connected. Why can't I network now next year while I'm on the road?
Right.
I've for 2+ almost 3 years now, every other week during the summer I don't network because of my baseball travel. And you're still not going to get me for an 8 a.m. coffee during the baseball season because it's guaranteed that I won't get home from work until 1 in the morning with a 12-inning game. That's the baseball gods.
Right.
But there will be good that comes of this. There is good coming of this right now. What does your guys' world, Mark, first look like in terms of pivots going forward and beyond this?
Yeah, I think one of the great things, if there is such a great thing that came out of this, right, is that it forced everybody's hand. You look at just the conferencing, right? You look at Zoom, you look at Google Meet, you look at GoToMeeting, you look at all these folks, right? They're all now in a war with each other for people to use their service. It's where the browser wars were, 15 years ago. And so what's great about that is it creates innovation. It creates the race to get more people. And so the way you do that is you innovate, right? So that's a great outcome from this. I think as it relates to our business, what is going to become very apparent to folks is that the resources that you thought that you used to have to hire, you don't have to hire anymore. You can actually rent and enable you to do things maybe faster, maybe cheaper, and maybe better than you've ever been able to do it before. And so we're trying to really leverage that mentality and help folks see what's possible from that outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just add on that, and then I have something to me that is really exciting that I'll share without giving away too much. For us, we've been able to really sharpen the knife over the last 3 months and figure out exactly how to put together a program that will build revenue for a company. And a case study for that is we'll come in and we'll have a conversation, successful company, doing very well. And we find out they don't even have a documented sales process. And because of that, their CRM, it's not working properly. And they don't really know why. It's like, okay, well, that's an outcome of this upfront work. So the case study is, hey, we come in, we will not build it for you, but we will build it with you. And then we'll take that strategy and turn it into, hey, here are your buyers, here are your buyers' personas, here's the journey that they go through to buy your products and or services, and here's the sequence that they want to buy in. And we take all of that and we put it into a CRM. And it can be Salesforce, it can be something, Zoho. And then that becomes this engine for them to like, wow, okay, everything is automated. I don't have to go into Excel. I don't have to do all these manual tasks anymore. So packaged up in one case study, that's an easy way to say one of the ways that we help. For me, the most exciting thing that we are working on, and don't worry, Mark, I'm not opening the kimono too much. Right. But what we've been doing is actually taking our brains and putting our brains into a business intelligence tool that is going to be able to do a lot of what we do on the consulting side automatically. And on that front, we'll have an exciting announcement sometime in the next few months. We've already got beta clients signed up. We're working with them to onboard that tool. It's a process. But to me, the ability to scale what we do is absolutely the most exciting thing that has happened and will happen in 2020.
Was that something, Mark, that came during the pandemic or something that you guys were thinking before?
The idea for it has been in the works for some time, right? And I think what happened was, we had an objective at the beginning of the year. We had some objectives that we wanted to do by the end of the year. This, again, just kind of forced the hand, right? It said, okay, this is, if not now, when? And so let's just go after it, right? And so credit to Blake, because he's kind of kept me in my lane of trying to keep this thing bite-sized and not too big. But there is a big plan for this whole thing that we're trying to execute against, and where we're at right now is right at our initial launch.
before we wrap things up,
Mhm.
a couple more things, but I've always said this to you guys. I know what both of you do, but I never can keep track of all of what you do. I suppose people might say the same about me, but I feel like mine's very easy to explain. Hey, he's on TV. Hey, he has a podcast. Hey, he speaks. But Digio Labs, Moonshot Innovations, where does all this fit in, Blake? I just know you're busy.
Yeah. So when I built my company, I had worked for over a decade in kind of agency style consulting firms that you always want to be able to do everything, but you can only be good, really good at so many things. And normally it's one thing. And so when I set out, I was like, I'm not going to try to be good at everything. I know what I offer. I'm going to go recruit great partners that are great at the one thing they do. And so you'll see Moonshot Innovations is listed on my LinkedIn, and as a partner, they're actually the ones partnering with us and building this tool that we're talking about. But they're also doing a lot of the business intelligence projects for our other clients. We leverage Proof. We leverage this ecosystem of partners that come in and work together under one brand. And at first we thought, hey, clients they're not used to that. They're not used to kind of looking at something and saying, there are 3 different companies sitting at the table with me. What does this mean? But actually, it's been adopted quickly. And it was the easiest decision. Mark and I have been working under that kind of pretense for about a year and a half. It was the easiest decision to say, okay, now we're the point of this. We're going to run point and scale this thing out. So at the pinnacle, at the point, we are growth services, growth strategy, growth engineers, and everything else is kind of a byproduct that comes in to assist in that growth. Tech, marketing, market research, any of those, other factors.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I always think of like Blake's the tech guy, Mark's the marketing guy. I know it's much more than that, but it is a really awesome collaboration, and ultimately it's about, making companies and people's lives better, and you guys do that well. Final thing, and we'll go lighthearted on this one. Well, if Blake had put on the fake glasses, I could have put on my real glasses. Then we could have had the debate. Mark always wins the glasses.
I'll take mine off. There, just do that. I like that.
Yeah, put them back on. Now, I want to know who has the best Corona hair right now. It's got to be Blake with them.
Well, Blake grows hair like he has to shave 3 times a day. So like he's like part ape. So this is.
It's true. The best. We were on a video conference yesterday morning, and I've been wearing a hat for everything. And someone say, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, Blake, but are you trying to grow a mullet? And I said, yeah, I guess I am. So I've just embraced the COVID hair.
It's good. Why not? My son just got a mullet the other day, but it's not like the mullets that we grew up with. It's like the Patrick Mahomes thing.
Yeah.
Which is not a mullet to me. It's just like it's the modern day mullet.
Yeah.
That's not a pandemic creation, as much as just trying to keep up with the times. The times have passed me by. I know.
Mine's more Alan Jackson in the early '90s.
yeah. Again, see, I'm glad to know that Blake is You're getting older enough that you could differentiate between the kids and hang with the old guys like me and Mark.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Shoot, Mark, we could have a whole nother that Mark and I have discussion about the kids being home in the house all the time, because for Mark,
Yeah, that's a whole different economic model that I was not expecting.
Yes, well, we're all dealing with that in some way or another. I have no idea whether my oldest is still sleeping or not. They were supposed to have football conditioning this morning.
Yep.
It's actually really interesting though, because the conditioning, they can't, if there's bad weather, throw them inside as an alternative from a safety standpoint.
Yep.
So, I woke up this morning and the text had come in, hey, it doesn't look great. We're gonna hold off on this one. So
our guys had it. They went out. They were on the field, yeah.
So we know what school's gonna win with
I don't know about that. It doesn't correlate, but
I will say it's been good just to see some of the activities resume. I on a personal level, I'm concerned about. I just saw some news that I think the Philadelphia Phillies had something like 5 players in their camp that have Corona. I mean, that to me is actually the biggest fear of not having any baseball season.
Yeah.
As awful as these negotiations and public as they have been, I'm going off on a tangent here, but those can ultimately be controlled if the grown-ups actually want to act like grown-ups.
That's right.
They can't control the health end of things. That's what scares me. There's a balance right now of getting back to some type of normal and being productive.
Right.
But there's also the health end of it that we can't control. Well, what I do know we can control, and you guys have spoken about this very well, is the ability to still be productive and do business, whether it be in person, whether it be online, whether it be doing video interviews like this. And so, it's been fun to watch the pivots. It's certainly been an inspiration, and I don't need to be the first to know about exactly what this project is, but I definitely want to hear when you guys are ready. Certainly let me know.
It's going to change.
We will do that. Yeah.
Got to change the world. I mean, that's what it's all about. All right, guys. Blake, I'm sure that you'll have like a shaggy beard by the end of today, and
I actually just shaved for you.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That by the end of the day, by the weekend, you'll be a mountain man. You're already on your way, just a couple of hours later. So, hey,
that's
guys.
Right.
Appreciate you doing this. Have a great weekend. I also appreciate both of your friendships and your guidance and being sounding boards. And I'm glad that you're able to spend a little bit of time with me here on a Friday. And maybe most importantly, don't work too hard the rest of this day. It's the weekend.
You got it, man.
Joel, thank you so much for having us on. It's a blast.
All right. Yeah, appreciate it. Blake Brock, Mark Kelly, two of the really good ones here in town. Hang tight for 1 second, guys. And just want to thank everyone for watching another week. I keep saying this over and over again, but I mean, this thing started in March and here it is still going. I think I'm gonna make a time change towards the end of this month just to prepare for possible day baseball games. If that comes back, I think it will next month. But this show is going to keep going once baseball starts. Certainly helps to have a great partner in Enterprise Bank and Trust, and so can't say enough awesome things about them. # no stopping you. KC Cattle Company, I mentioned it before, got that delivery today. You can check them out, veteran owned and operated up in Weston, Missouri. Wagyu beef, my recommendation, try the bacon cheeseburger bratwursts if you're on the coronavirus, the pandemic diet. It's not the best of things, I know, but they got healthy stuff there too. But check them out. They are amazing. Wagyu beef. Actually, their founder has been on this show before, Patrick Montgomery, former U.S. Army Ranger. And JJ's Wine and Spirits, my newest sponsor, southwest corner of College and Antioch. Wednesdays are 15% off bottles of wine, but they're open 7 days a week. Great service if you're in Overland Park, the Johnson County area. That is going to do it for another episode of Rounding the Bases Live, presented by Enterprise Bank and Trust. Have a great weekend, everyone. A good Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there. And I'll catch you Monday on Rounding the Bases Live.